Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Unlike Actionable Insights for Deep Customer Engagement. We appreciate you taking time with us this afternoon to explore this important topic. There are a couple housekeeping items I'd like to go over before we begin. All attendees are in listen-only mode. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please submit them through the GoToWebinar link that you'll see on your control panel. We'll be answering any questions you have at the end of the presentation, so please keep them coming in. We're going to be recording today's webinar, and we're going to be sending out a link to so you can download that recording after the event. With that, I'd like to introduce today's speakers. First, we're going to hear from Terry Ginley. He's the Director of Analytics at Velocio. Then Tom Totten is going to be presenting. He's our pre-sales engineer. And rounding out today's webinar is going to be Judson Parsons. He's a solution architect on the analytics team. So with that, I think we're ready to begin. I'm going to turn it over to Terry. Go ahead and take it away, Terry.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for attending here today, our webinar. And the first slide I'm going to bring up here, I think is kind of an interesting statement, but I think it's a very strong one. You know, our goal at Velocio is to change the mindset of organizations to become a learning organization. And again, it's not just data, it's not just reports and things like that, but how can we want to learn from, you know, the data that we can and then learn the next question. So in my slides today and some of the samples that I'm going to show, I'm going to, you know, keep that constant theme of learning. You know, how do we learn in school today, or my kids? You know, you learn by asking questions. So, so how do we improve our businesses? You know, very similarly, we ask questions of our data, really going in there and saying, you know, why are these things happening? Could we do this better? How do we change? So that's going to be the constant theme in some of the solutions and examples that we're going to show. These are all solutions that we've built for our clients today. We've masked the data, so it's just sample data, so people can't see what it is. But I think it'll talk to some of the what the questions were and what's been learned. The areas that we're going to talk about, you know, just to highlight a few, we're going to try to spot some data and take some action on these. It'll be around customer performance, you know, how are we doing on our sales and our margins, which are key to growth and performance. Sales management, you know, how am I managing my sales team, doing best practices there. The next area that I'm going to talk about is some people may have seen, you know, market basket analysis or sales mix performance. You see on Amazon, hey, when people bought this, a lot of times they bought these 3 items. So how can you kind of learn that? Even if you're not Amazon, even if you're a retail store, how can you learn from that data to make better decisions? And then the last one we'll show is just talk a little bit about our vendor pricing and performance. You know, how do we manage and get the best results from our vendors, which is critical to most businesses. So the first question I'm going to ask here, you know, which products are selling best? You know, and again, these happen to be Power BI dashboards. Not as much about the tool of this presentation, but it's more, you know, how can you use this data differently? So, you know, what are the best-selling margins? So you can see on the visual that I have on the left, you know, I really don't want to see a report that shows me every item I have in Excel and then I have a pivot table. You know, what I really care about are the top selling items and making sure that everybody's aware that, you know, that these are the top sellers, and are we making sure we're pushing these more or pushing these to more customers? The other area on the right over here, you'll notice, we kind of added a couple of different data points. We're really looking at, in this case, our gross margin, and really trying to sort them to say, you know, who's falling below what we call our average. So as a company and a retailer, we may have this average. In this case, it looks like it's about 20-some% of a goal of this gross margin. So in this case, you know, if these steel trays aren't being used much anymore, why are we even carrying them? Why aren't we looking at some of the plastic or the wire ones, which are much higher margin, you know, to our business? And then I might even want to overlay the 2 charts, might be another way to look at the data. The next I'm going to look at here is a dashboard that we've created. And really what we were talking about here is the salesperson. You know, what salesperson is selling best at selling which products? You know, so just different ways we can look at it. So in this case, It's dollars sold, this year by salesperson. So you can see all the different salespeople here. You can see that performance. When I click on them, what it'll say is who's selling what over here on the right side, who's selling what type of items. So basically, in this case, we had a client that took the top selling people and how are they selling these specific products. And they actually presented at the quarterly, or actually the monthly sales meeting, where they actually went in and had to show people how the other sales team, how they sold that item. So basically improve the quality of the selling effort for the different products. As we talked about with market basket analysis, in this case here, we created a solution for a client where you can see here, they're looking at, they took a slicer for this dashboard. They went in here and said, listen, I want to go look at all the computers. Let's look at desktops. And in this case, what are the, which one we're both orders. So when they buy a desktop, typically they buy a modem and a filter. So in this case, the combined order rate is 98%. So that's very high. I probably want to put those items together, whether it's in the aisle or on the e-commerce site. And you can see how we can see the different combined order rate to see what's selling well together or what's not. Another way to look at it, instead of looking at it on the website or the page, let's look at it in the which aisle of the retail store. And again, this could be distribution company, this could be a warehouse picture. What we did is we created a dashboard with Power BI. This is it's a common feature where we took an image and we basically plotted data to it. So you can see when I go through the registers, you can see the revenue, where certain things are selling, where certain things are not selling as well. And in this case, we might want to make decisions, especially come holiday season or before weekends. You may want to restock the store in different areas, different ways. So just think about what data would help you with that decision versus, let's say, an Excel report where you'd have to, pivot and slice through tons of data to try to make that decision. So just a different way to, we believe, to analyze the data differently. So the next area we'll look at is which vendors, sell us inventory at the lowest price and who ships on time. Two very important metrics. One of our clients, they're very driven by perfect order rate. So are they getting all the items in from the vendor on time so that they can get all of their orders out the door with no back orders, everything in stock and shipped on time. So here you can see, if I look at it, I can look at the different, deliveries, which ones are late, which ones have quantities are canceled we had to do. When I click and slice on these, I can see different areas, different cost breakdowns. So if I look here, if I look at this one, this phone here that I'm purchasing from, it looks like 3 different vendors. I'm buying a lot of it from Convex. But if you look at Convex's extended or unit costs, it's one of the highest. That's great. They're getting it there, but it's really impacting my gross margin. So maybe in this case, I should be looking at it differently and looking at the telesatellite industries, which we're buying a little bit from, but not nearly as much as we should. So I can go take action and make it, maybe a change in the vendor mix. So then I get back to my theme again of asking questions. This is a really neat feature of Power BI for Microsoft. So you can literally see, I just opened up what they call a browser window here in Power BI to ask a question. So as you can see on the left over here, it says questions to get you started. So we just literally, I typed this in, or if you're using Cortana Analytics, I could have talked to the computer and said, what are the top 5 salespeople, right before in the April timeframe for 2017, right before I walk into the sales meeting. I didn't have a report, didn't have time to go back and get it. I just typed that in there. And it's basically, in this case, Sue Welton is the top salesperson and I can see her sales. Maybe I want to drill down, find out more information about those sales as well, which items to which customers. That's all available right here with just me using my language. So in the bottom right corner, this is a tile that was used on a phone. So you can ask a question. Maybe you want to say just a quick item. Sales for, in this case, Kevin Harris, 43,000, for April 3rd. So I can literally see his performance by asking a question of my data. And the last area, which is a neat feature that just came out in Power BI, where we can basically let Power BI ask and answer. It'll try to answer its own question. So here in this case, I clicked on a certain chart, the visual, which is down below, And I said, analyze this for me. So I right clicked and it popped up this window. So instead of just showing the percentage you see over on the chart, maybe, what Power BI did is it went through and it says, okay, I know all about this data. Basically it went in and found the two items that accounted for the majority of the increase. We didn't type any of this text in. We didn't come up with any of this verbiage. It's just basically going through and saying, hey, I can look at this data and I can try to say what made the biggest impact. So you can see very quickly how we've let Power BI do a lot of the work for us. Now I can do further analysis. Maybe it's only this month, next month, I might slice by any of these things over here to see what's causing that difference. So really just tools and technologies to help us ask questions better of our data. So with that, I'm going to turn over the session to Tom, and Tom's going to go explore a little bit more about how BI can help in your sales performance.
Thanks, Terry. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to talk a little bit about business intelligence for sales. So, sales analytics are important for the understanding and prediction of future sales trends. And at the same time, they provide information on the sellers, where they perform best and what they can improve. And the pressure they're under can't allow them to waste hours on building reports. So you want to let BI do that for you, centralizing all of your metrics on one approachable platform while you stay busy closing more deals. So when it comes to sales operations, for sales forecasting analytics to employee performance details, sales reps need the all-encompassing insight of their department accomplishments. For CRM management, you want to turn your customer data into actionable insights. In combining CRM with BI, you can enlarge your capabilities and better visualize the critical information you need. Sellers can focus on the customer relationship and increase conversion rates. And then for prospect management, effective prospect management requires a solid data. It requires solid data to develop engagement mechanisms so that your pipeline is always full and active so that you can keep the money coming in. And BI provides sales business dashboards, helping you appreciate the state of your leads, just like what Terry was showing us. And then for performance management, extensive pipeline management combined with effortless sales retrospectives paves the way towards a reliable performance assessment. And BI dashboards enable you to consolidate and visualize all the sales data you need to monitor your performance seamlessly. So a lack of adequate data and analysis creates several unique challenges for your sales teams. First, the inability to reach the right leads at the right time. More than 20% of sales leaders say prospecting is a top challenge for their teams. And then lack of targeted communication with leads. Just 23% of sales emails are opened, as they're either irrelevant or would be more successful on another channel. No collaborative analytics. So only 8% of businesses say their marketing, sales, and finance data is centralized and accessible to other teams. As a result, they're unable to leverage cross-departmental insights to grow the business. To meet these sales challenges head on, you need to eliminate data silos at your company and empower your sales teams with BI tools. Your salespeople already know that it's tougher to sell to a new customer than upsell to an existing one. The probability of being able to sell to a new customer is just 5 to 20%, but goes up to between 60 and 70% for an existing customer. Now, BI offers insights to help businesses target current customers, and here's how. BI helps you learn everything about your best-selling products and previous buyers that could be repeat customers. BI helps you find opportunities to cross-sell across categories. BI helps identify the best time to sell specific items and the best season to sell them. And BI helps optimize your resources and sell more effectively. You can analyze the success of each channel in driving leads and conversions, and then optimize your resources to focus on the channels with higher returns on your investment. Now, loyal customers are 5 times more likely to repurchase and 7 times more likely to try a new product. Remember though, a customer experience isn't created in a day. It's the result of how a business, big or small, handles its interactions. Your sales team is responsible for fostering a positive customer experience right from the lead stage. And when you nurture a lead into a satisfied customer, you're more likely to refer your business to their counterparts. A typical business loses 15% of its customers each year. Here are some ways in which BI tools help you create value for your customers from the beginning. BI helps you know your customers inside and out. It provides organized data summaries of your prospects' relationships and interactions, including details of past purchases. This will empower salespeople to handle new and old leads more effectively. And you have to anticipate attrition and then tackle it head on. BI helps you understand the general lead habits and trends to foresee, anticipate that attrition. And then you can flag the high-risk customers and any rise in the attrition rate to prompt your sales reps to retain them. BI will arm you with analytics on cost savings and foreseeable inventory challenges. It will help you handle negotiations on budget and timely delivery, earning customer loyalty. Strong omni-channel customer engagement strategies ensure high percentages of customer retention. To achieve this, you need collaborative insights from all departments which is going to help sales reps provide a positive customer experience. And lack of alignment between departments, on the other hand, severely impairs sales and overall customer experience. And to address this challenge, your business needs interdepartmental collaboration so your sales reps can access the following information. What kind of impact does each channel have on customers, leads, and prospects? For instance, is social media bringing in more leads for a certain product? And if yes, then marketing efforts should be redirected in that area. What kind of feedback do customer service reps get about product performance based on their direct conversations with customers? Omni-channel or multi-channel experience requires teams to come together to understand what's important, what's working for the customers, and what isn't. And based on this, they can devise an integrated strategy for communication at all customer touch points. And then insights from every department that engages with customers can help your sales team understand what the customer wants and which strategy could trigger new leads to convert. Business data needs to be constantly reviewed and maintained once collected. It must be checked for duplicate and outdated entries continuously. Any gaps in business data might lead to inaccurate analysis and impact. That's going to impact the business overall. Inaccurate data impacts the bottom line of 88% of businesses, resulting in an average revenue loss of 12%. To address this, your business needs a tool that consistently provides an accurate and maintained data so that the business decisions are backed by facts and correct data. And your sales team needs easy access to the latest, most accurate data. So to save time and enable them to make data-driven decisions with self-service BI tools, here's how we would do that. So we want to make data-driven decisions on the go. Self-service BI tools provide access to real-time and up-to-date data. This eliminates the need to put in manual requests for data acquisition, speeding up the whole process. And then data-backed sales decisions are unbiased and don't rely on intuition alone, gut feel. Invest in regular training to increase sales. Just like your execution strategy, your training strategy also needs to be agile. Regular sales training leads to a 50% boost in net sales per employee. And then prepare sales strategies for proposed projects. Run predictive analysis on historical and current market trends to find out the possible outcomes of a proposed project. Based on this analysis, your sales team can devise strategies and execution methods to support future sales targets. They should examine the potential pros and cons of products and be able to respond effectively. And enable effective goal setting. BI tools look at historical data to forecast demand in a particular market, and these figures help sales reps set accurate sales goals while businesses get accurate estimates to price their products. 40% of sales reps say they don't feel prepared for their calls, and 82% of business-to-business decision makers feel the same way. This lack of preparedness could be the result of a lack of knowledge, diffused learning, or inability to effectively handle variables such as product price change, market fluctuation, and maybe even target region change. Use BI tools to prepare your team for the unknown and handle the shifting demands of their role. Here's how. Prepare your sales team. Offer your team insights from web searches, social media, and customer responses to your ads so that they can understand audience responses to variables. Share knowledge of current and future market trends based on market sentiment and social listening so that they're prepared to sell your brand. Sensitize them about customers' pricing and budget challenges. If you're contemplating a price change, your sales team needs to know about it. Knowing how the market will react to a price change lets them address budget-related concerns from customers. Anticipate market realignments. Realign sales reps to different markets to help them grow in their career and learn about new markets. Share industry-specific research as well as to empower them to handle sales for all industries. And then promote agility with communication. Gather insights about variables like region and month that impact sales. Your sales team can use this learning to update their sales scripts and strategies so that they can close deals faster and meet the sales quotas for each quarter. Now, change can be hard. As a sales manager, you may find it tough to convince your team to use new tools and more data when they're used to relying on their gut and soft skills to deal with customers. While the latter are important, the value BI adds to the sales process is too immense to ignore. Here are
Hi, it sounds like we're having some audio.
prioritize the areas.
Hey, Tom,
Am I
sorry.
going in and out?
Yeah, you're fading in and out, but just keep going. You're good.
All right, I'm almost done.
Okay. I think what we're going to do is turn it over to Judson, and hopefully you have some better audio there, Judson, okay? Tom, I'm going to have to, I'll cut you off there.
So sorry about the audio there, but yeah.
You're back. Can you close it up, Tom?
Yeah, that's where I'm in. That's where I ended. So let's turn it over to Judson. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Dale. You able to hear me a little bit better, Dale?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So thanks for joining this afternoon, everyone. We're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about planning, budgeting, and forecasting, and really how you can build value through planning, budgeting, and forecasting for your organization. At Velocity, we have a whole team dedicated to helping businesses transform their planning, their budgeting, their forecasting, which I'm probably going to refer to as PBF activities or functions for the rest of the slideshow. And the reason we've dedicated a team just to PBF is due to our belief of how deep it can affect your business. We're in a dynamic world, right? Internal, external complexities continue to grow, and they're not going to stop growing, right? And we believe it's important now more than ever to have a deep understanding of where we are today, where we want to be tomorrow, but more importantly, what are the steps in between that we need to take to be able to get there. You don't have to look very far today in a typical organization to find business managers who see little value in their PBF activities. I've heard stories of people literally closing their doors as FP&A managers walk down the hall, right? And while it's top of mind for a lot of finance executives to grow and improve their PBF functions, achieving significant change is rare. So what I want to focus on is really some of the reasons that we've seen organizations have problems being able to make significant change around PBF. We don't think that it should be a source of pain and dissatisfaction in organizations. If it's done well, it actually can and should be a source of competitive advantage for your organization. So I've got two sets of data here. Let me back that up. I've got two sets of data here that I want to talk about. And this first set comes from a survey Deloitte did in 2016 related to integrated performance management. And the statistics I have on the screen are really going to focus on the three different areas that we'll talk about for the rest of the demonstration around technology, around processes, and around people, and how those all collaborate and affect your PBF process. So the very first statistic there is over a third of organizations still use spreadsheets as their main PBF or reporting tool even. And spreadsheets remain ubiquitous in large and small organizations, and that's fine, right? Spreadsheets are a great tool, but they're not a platform. The analogy you can make, right, is you could run accounting out of spreadsheets, but it's not effective. There's no way to create controls, workflow, collaboration is very difficult. You can't delegate responsibilities, right? So what we see, and what a lot of organizations, I guess, don't realize, is that there are purpose-built planning tools that are used to actually typically, collect data, and their primary purpose is developing and modeling budgets and plans. There's some large ones out there like Hyperion's, right? A lot of people have probably heard of that. Velocio, we help our clients go through a process of really selecting some of the best tools for their specific purposes. So that's the first statistic I want to point out, really around technology. The second one is that 38% of the respondents to this survey believed that they had a poor end-to-end PBF process. There's another statistic kind of related to that I didn't add in here, but essentially more than 60% of organizations only look at financial data related to their budgeting process. And you're not looking at demand, revenue, or cost drivers such as like headcount, training hours, other drivers or performance indicators of your actual business's health. And so we're seeing that as an explanation for the lack of like an integrated approach. Budgeting and forecasting, they're oftentimes seen as a process that's owned by finance. And as a result, the PBF functions happen in silos. Your executive team is maybe outlining the strategy, and then it's finance's job to drive the planning process across the organization. And then your different operating units are delivering against that target that they didn't really have much of an input or a say in the beginning of it, right? So each level is focusing on their own objectives, but there's a disconnect where each silo, if you will, or each operating unit, they're failing to understand how each affects the other. So this is really kind of the focus on the process or the lack of good process that we're seeing is is causing an issue. And the third statistic there, that a third of respondents are frustrated by top level changes with no reasoning built into the bottom up plan. So kind of touches to the process a little bit, but this really more is a focus on the people. And we find that, it's such a waste of time, effort, resources to spend over 3 months preparing a set of numbers that the few in the organization believe, or even fewer believe is useful, in the sense that by the time the budget's finalized, it's already out of date. So that kind of touches on the people side of things. The last set of data that I have here comes from an AFP, Association of Finance Professionals survey that was also done in 2016. And it just speaks to the time that it takes to build, or to the typical organization to build their budget and to build their forecast. 77 days complete to build an annual budget, 20 days to prepare a forecast. If you're doing a monthly forecast and it takes 20 days to prepare it, by the time it's done, you have 10 days left in the month to actually utilize it. And then 83% of that time, I think this is the important one, is spent on non-strategic tasks. So because you're not able to utilize great technology, maybe you have a poor process and some of the people don't believe in the process or believe in the PBF functions, you're spending 83% of your time on non-strategic tasks, when that time could certainly be building value elsewhere, whether it's within the operating unit or within your PBF functions. So the next 3 slides are really going to dive in a little bit deeper into the process, the technology, and then the people aspect that we've just talked about. So what we've seen with a lot of the organizations that we've worked with is that they often struggle to translate their goals or their business strategy, their strategic plan, if you will, into the actual budget itself, right? So what we've seen is if the budget can incorporate strategic targets, whether it's from a shorter term or a longer term outlook, it's really guiding employees to make decisions which overall contribute to the strategic goal of the organization. We find that's very important, and a lot of organizations struggle to do that. Talked about this a little bit, but really fully integrating PBF across the organization, right? So getting away from just looking at financial information, but looking at the drivers that affect each operating unit within your organization, and really trying to help each operating unit understand how their piece of the pie affects the next to them. The third is creating clarity around PBF processes and ownership. So what we've seen is that the most progressive organizations around their PBF functions are using budgeting to set that medium-term plan that can kind of provide the framework and direction of targets. But it's important to make sure each operating unit understands what their role is in that process, and make sure that they're taking ownership of it. The fourth is forecasting properly. So a lot of organizations that we've worked with, actually, a lot of them don't forecast. A lot of them go through their annual budgeting process, and that's kind of it. There's really not a lot of recalibration, if you will, right? So where we kind of see the budget and the forecast coming into play is that your budgeting process sets the plan, right? It almost sets the direction for where the organization needs to head. But forecasting is really that process that allows you to dynamically make decisions and deliver against certain targets really as the year progresses, right? It's kind of, I say crazy. It's tough to set an annual budget that takes 3 months to build, right? And to expect those assumptions and those drivers you're using to hold true throughout the rest of the year, when oftentimes by the time the budget is done and finalized, it doesn't even matter anymore because some key assumptions have already changed. So forecasting properly is very important in your overall process. And then the fifth, this kind of applies to anything you do in your organization, right? But not only do you need to execute on your process, but you continuously need to look at it and track your performance, track your variances, right? Track your variances against the forecast, to your budget, to your actuals. How can you improve that process to decrease your variances, right? To come within a closer measure of the actual results that's happening. Second slide is really related to technology, and we talked about spreadsheets a little bit. And I don't want to say that spreadsheets are not useful, because that's certainly not the case, right? They're really one of the most powerful personal productivity tools there are, and they have their purpose in the organization, no doubt, and they probably always will. But what we've seen is that these purpose-built planning platforms really allow organizations to plan and forecast on a much more collaborative basis. So they allow you to collect and aggregate reported information much quicker than you could with just a spreadsheet. They have that kind of purpose-built capability, right, to model different scenarios and potential impact of variations in some of your key drivers. So doing what if scenarios, what if planning around your sales, around changing input costs or currency fluctuations, things that are difficult to do in spreadsheets. Another problem we see with spreadsheets is that the manual data entry and re-entry part of complex spreadsheets, it's a notorious source of mistakes in the PBF function. So these purpose-built platforms, when used properly, it significantly reduces the possibility of system error, and it automates the aggregation process and just overall simplifies the process. One thing we've seen as it relates to technology specifically is often a reluctance to invest in the technology, right? Everyone has Excel spreadsheets and they're free, as well as most finance professionals are actually very capable of building some complex models in Excel. And we think this reluctance to invest in the technology really stems from an inability to kind of articulate the benefits of the investment. And in a lot of cases, organizations are they want to seek that the base of their investment, basically the ROI of it, and reducing the overall amount of effort spent in planning and forecasting, and even potentially reducing the headcount. And we see that actually is a case, right? That actually does happen. These technologies, it does allow you to reduce the effort spent in planning, and it can reduce the headcount for organizations that are growing. But what we see is actually the greatest benefit comes from freeing up your staff of spending time on that data aggregation and those non-strategic tasks, freeing them up from the non-strategic tasks and allowing them to provide insights and supports to the executive team or to different business units on the actual decision-making process. And then the last category, the people and the culture, right? So a little bit less bullet points here, but I kind of want to point out one of the things we've seen specifically around people and culture is this is kind of the one category that kind of goes under the radar. And we almost believe that this might be one of the most important issues to address. So the first is eliminating the this is what we do, this is the way we do things here mindset. It's a very toxic mindset to organizations, right? You need to be able to break that mindset and really to grow your processes and be willing to grow and be willing to change to see key value or to build that value. And then the third point that I'll touch on that's actually really important, is by improving your processes around PBF, kind of breaking that mindset of working away from the instinctual decision making, which a lot of people in businesses these days have been in these industries for years and years, and sometimes their instincts are actually they work well, but what we try to help organizations do is use those instincts together with actually making data-driven decision making, or using data to almost back up your instincts, right? So we think that's important. But again, just to kind of highlight here, addressing your processes, addressing the technology issues, they do deliver improvements, but if your internal behaviors are wrong, then the effectiveness of your PBF still will remain low. And so I'll wrap it up here with this diagram. So we've talked about the people, the processes, and the technology, and really all three of those combined are what allow you to build the value within your PBF functions and your activities within the organization. But just kind of want to quickly touch on high-level steps of when all of those come together, kind of, how do you engage, how do you proceed, right? Once you kind of realize all those things need to come together. And the first is really engaging your leadership. It has to start within, normally is what we see. And executive ownership really needs to understand the need for improvement, and it has to start within, right? The second is understanding the issues and the impacts. It's important to be able to build that value within your PBF functions. The third is being able to commit to the benefits, and that shared commitment to the targeted outcomes and the change required is really important. Really, it kind of translates into the fourth step, which is actually committing to the change. Having that agreed vision on the framework and the roadmap and the milestones you want to achieve. And then, once those four steps have really kind of been put into place, then the final step is actually initiating the plan and engaging the organization. And that's all I've got.
Okay, thanks a lot, Judson, and thanks to all of our speakers for some insightful information there. I just want to remind the audience that you can ask questions. Just go to your panel there on the GoToWebinar and submit your questions, and we'd be glad to address those right now. The speakers will. In fact, we have a few questions that have already come in. This first one, I think, is probably best directed at Terry. And the question is, can these solutions that we talked about today connect to my accounting system, as well as can I bring data in from another system that I use to run my business? And that might even be, I'm thinking, like an external data source. So Terry, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, just want to confirm I'm back on audio. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, good question. So actually, I'll use an example from yesterday. Judson and I were on a call with one of our large clients yesterday that we're doing some budgeting forecasting data from their ERP solution. But what we're the next generation, what they really want to do next is bring in the operational. And it's a system that they built. It's a SQL server, but again, custom, one-off system where it goes all the way from marketing to lead generation, all the way through to getting the project, winning the deal. It's like a CRM on steroids. And then they want to take that data now and integrate that into their ERP, and with the different reporting tools, can then apply against it. In this case, we may put it in the ERP. We may actually go to the source system and kind of mash the data together. So yeah, absolutely, we see that all the time.
So there's probably a big advantage in being able to take the data from different sources and see it, make conclusions about it when it's seen in one kind of dashboard, or being able to analyze it that way. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Terry. Another question we have is actually kind of addresses the last presentation that Judson presented. This question says, you know, on that last slide you showed, Judson, and maybe you want to go back to it. Let's say in the past, the executive team is on board with making significant changes to the budgeting process in our organization. But what comes next? What actions should I plan on taking next? Does that make sense, Judson? Can you address that?
Yeah, I think so. So if the executive team is on board and essentially kind of agrees that change needs to happen, um, the next step I have there was understanding the issues and the impacts, which is it's kind of broad, right? But it's really between your technology, your people, and your processes. It's really evaluating them and almost setting up that roadmap of where are we in our process and where do we want to go. Really setting up that roadmap, and that's oftentimes that's where our clients are coming to us at that exact stage between those 2 points. Once the executive leadership's on board and clients are coming to us and kind of asking what is that next step, right? We're actually able to help really through the whole process in terms of, saying, okay, what are you doing now? Where do you want to go? Finding where the broken links are in between. We work with several different the planning built, purpose built technologies that I was talking about. We work with several of those solutions. So we help our clients kind of from point A of understanding what technology is best for their situation, what are some of the process changes that need to take place, and what are some of the internal kind of people and culture places that need to take place. So that's kind of where we fit into that roadmap and the second step after the executive leadership's on board. So
Great.
hopefully that helps.
Okay, great. One other question here that has come in, and again, I remind our audience, please feel free to add some more add questions as we have a few minutes left here. Question, maybe I'll open this up to our panelists. A lot of companies like ours have challenges with data quality. And just wanted to see your thoughts on how can these tools that you've presented today, these technology solutions about business intelligence, help deal with fixing data quality issues, and also ensuring quality data moving forward. Have you had any experience with clients dealing with that issue?
Yeah, I'll take that one. And so, yeah, I would say a couple of things. We work on a number of projects where at the beginning, we'll actually use some of our tools, not to build the end solution necessarily, but if we have, integrated systems and we're seeing values on one side of this integration and on the other side that they're not consistent, we'll do is actually do a data cleansing or quality project where we'll go in and say, says this over here, does this over here, where's the disconnect? So we can then back into getting a little, better integrations or better sources. And then the way we do it on an ongoing basis, I think was the second part of your question. I think it's we're able to, very well work with our clients to get one version of the truth. In this case, so for example, the one I gave from yesterday, if we're going to go right to the operational system, that's the book of record. We're not going to have another system. There's not going to be spreadsheets running around.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important part, keeping one version of the truth.
And obviously a connected system helps enforce that versus, like you said, extraneous spreadsheets.
Yeah, spread marks are a dangerous thing.
Okay. All right. It looks like that's the last of the questions right now, but Justin, you might want to flip to our next slide. I want to just conclude here and thank everyone for attending today's session. If you have more questions, you can reach us through our website at Velocio.com or call. We've got live people standing by, experts to help you in your business decision making. And if you want to explore these issues further, we can get you in touch with some experts like our speakers today, or just drop us an email. You can reach us any of those ways. We'd be glad to have a conversation, no obligation conversation with you about your business challenges and where you'd like to go in your business. Again, thanks again for attending today. I want to thank our speakers, and we look forward to speaking with you at an upcoming event. Thanks, and have a great day.